This is Washington Watch, and I am your host, Tony Perkins. So good to have you with us today. The website, TonyPerkins.com. Let me remind you, lots of resources there for you on the website, TonyPerkins.com. Have analysis of the American Families Plan put out by the Biden administration. Take a look at that. Also, our prayer guide as we talk about the National Day of Prayer. In fact, coming up in just a few moments, Dr. Ronnie Floyd is going to be joining us, former president of the National Day of Prayer. By the way, the Washington Watch audience continues to expand. In addition to the nearly 800 radio stations carrying Washington Watch, we now have a video version on his channel. And starting this week, Liftable TV. To find out how you can watch Washington Watch and other solid biblical worldview programming, go to TonyPerkins.tv. That's TonyPerkins.tv. Now, you may have caught recent headlines like this one. Battle between Republican leaders Cheney and McCarthy reaching boiling point. Or there was this one. Trump, House GOP leaders endorse Elise Stefanik to replace Liz Cheney. Many are asking, what's this all about? And does it matter? Well, I've spoken to some of these Republican leaders, and I can give you some insight into what it is about. I'll also share with you why this matters for the GOP and, as a result, for the country. These are the issues that will shape the party and significantly influence whether or not the Republicans regain a congressional majority in 2022. Liz Cheney has angered conservatives by not only embracing, but echoing the left's attacks on President Trump and being one of the 10 House members who voted to impeach him in January. At issue for me is Cheney's role as the chairman of the Republican conference in the House, which is a leadership role. There's just a handful of leaders. Now, in this leadership role, she hosts the Republican meetings in the House, and she shapes and communicates the party's message to the GOP members of the House. It is an important post, as it shapes the messaging of priorities and the purpose of all the Republican members that the public eventually hears about. It was not just her impeachment vote, but her continued criticism of former President Trump and her criticism of those who questioned the tainted election results that has raised the ire of so many people. Now, I disagreed with her impeachment vote, but she is a member of Congress, and she alone has to decide how she votes as the elected representative of the voters of Wyoming. I'll leave that to the voters of her state to take care of. But where it becomes my concern is, again, her leadership role in representing Republicans and Republican priorities. Addressing the election irregularities that I believe altered the outcome of the November election is a priority for conservatives. It has to be. If election irregularities were not an issue, there would not be over 350 bills introduced in the legislatures of 47 states to fix the myriad problems that surfaced in November. So she's wrong on that. She is at the center of shaping the message that Republican voters will hear, which will influence how they vote. Conservative voters will approach this next election with a level of enthusiasm based upon their confidence in what the Republican leaders are saying and doing. Now, this is where President Trump raised the bar for conservative support. Milquetoast politicians are no longer acceptable. Conservative voters want bold leaders who will pursue an aggressive conservative agenda, like what is outlined in the GOP party platform. Now, on the issues, Cheney actually has a really good record. She is 100% with FRC action. According to reports, she voted over 92% of the time with President Trump. But this unnecessary feud with the former president and his supporters is not only unnecessary, but it also puts the GOP's ability to retake the House at risk. Now, having said that, the solution being offered is the wrong one. Former President Trump has endorsed Elise Stefanik of New York as Cheney's replacement. The reason? Well, Stefanik did an outstanding job defending Trump during his first impeachment, and she did not take the bait and turn on the president when he was impeached a second time. For all of that, she is to be commended. The concerns, though, with Stefanik are her positions on what are core conservative issues. As opposed to Cheney voting 92.9% of the time with Trump, according to 538, Stefanik only voted 77% of the time with the president's policies. And Stefanik's lifetime score with FRC action is even less, at 70.6%. Do the Republicans really want someone shaping their political and policy messages to their members and by extension to the voters that was only with President Trump's agenda 3/4 of the time? Stefanik's milquetoast conservatism could signal a shift away from a 2-decade-long trend toward more solidly conservative congressional leaders. As the Republican caucus has become more devoted to conservative policies and ideals, the enthusiasm and activism among conservative voters has increased significantly. Why? Because bold, clearly defined leaders inspire. Leaders who do not equivocate on core conservative values inculcate voters with the hope that things don't have to stay like they are, that they can in fact be changed. The not-so-secret secret behind President Trump's success and unprecedented allegiance from conservatives was and is his pugnacious pushback against the left. Cheney has become a problem for the GOP, and it must be addressed. But Stefanik could become a problem that voters will address. And that's where I stand.